Welcome to LifePoint TV. I'm Pastor Del Phillips, your host for LifePoint, your path to real life. I want us to take a look at our final lesson here in this study. This is a passage that we've been dealing with, Paul writes as a notation of his own personal uh, opportunity as he faces opposition. Here in 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 9, we continue with our focus on the open door. Paul says a great door is open before him, a great door that is effectual. The driving point here has been to reckon with the fact that although the door is open, there are also adversaries that are at that intersection, that open entry that would allow Paul to move forward. The adversary, the opposition, the one who is against Paul, is present at the door. In our last lesson, we talked about how God will provide great opportunity, opening a great door, and that great opportunity is often accompanied by great opposition. And it and the fact that opposition exists does not mean that we are not expected to move forward. Quite the contrary. The open door Paul describes is also as a door or a pathway that is effectual. In other words, it shows or reveals to us that God's intent is for us to move forward and affect or fulfill what God has called us to do, to allow our experience, even our challenging experiences, to effectively push us forward so that we can affect the outcome. We can fulfill what God has called us to do. I want to close our teaching with understanding the significance of facing our adversary. It is uncommon, and I want you to grab a hold of this. It is uncommon for us to see our enemy and to truly confront the enemy that we see. Uh, we usually, and I'm speaking very generally here, in just trying to create something that we can see in our own imagination. If we are aware that we are going to encounter our enemy, to encounter a conflict, our default um, uh, reflex is to go in the opposite direction. And if we know that our enemy, our opposition, is traveling on the same path that we are approaching our direction, we will often alter our course so we don't have to face the enemy. It's uncommon for us to go toe to toe, if you will, face to face, eyeball to eyeball with our enemy. It is normally understood to be counterproductive to actually have to confront the enemy. So we tend to look for ways we can avoid the enemy. As a matter of fact, in most cases concerning how we deal with conflict, how we deal with opposition, we believe that finding an alternative or taking a secondary route is really creating a better option or creating an opportunity for us to move forward and not having to face any interference or any opposition. But Paul here really forces us to look at the truism in regards to facing our enemy. What does the Bible actually have to say about you and I having to uh, face that opposition, the thing that is opposing us? Well, perhaps one of the most familiar examples that comes to mind is the contest, the confrontation between young David and great Goliath. Uh, it's an illustration that we use to identify or to compare, the greater to the lesser. It allows us to see how the weaker has to stand before the stronger. But one thing that we cannot overlook, and that is the fact that David, more than anything, was willing to face the enemy. As a matter of fact, if we look at the details in the story, David heard about the enemy, heard about the contest, heard how many other Jewish or Hebrew brethren had been run off by this enemy. And David chooses a path to set himself face to face with Goliath. This is an important factor when we look at what Paul is teaching us here in this verse as we wrap this up. We cannot be afraid to face our opposition, to intentionally drive our path directly forward, knowing that opposition is coming towards us, knowing that we are going to have that contest, if you will, with our great Goliath. I want to encourage those who are listening to this teaching today that when you see your enemy, it is not God's intention for us to cross over to the other side. God is not trying to send us a message or a hint that maybe we should take an alternative path. When God says, I have ordained your steps, I have called you to walk in this way, He fully intends for us to walk the path where He has called us to, to, to be on. That path He has called us to be on. He expects us to walk on that path no matter what. So when the enemy arises, we should move forward. When we know that the enemy is going to be present, we should move forward. We walk by faith, our confidence, our hope in God, not by sight. The enemy is going to come. Opposition is going to show up. But that doesn't mean I have to change or alter my course regarding what God has called me to do. Father God, I just pray right now that for every person watching this program today, that you encourage and inspire us to stay on the path that leads to real life. God bless you. I'll see you on our next broadcast.